Welcome back to the Reier on YouTube channel, where it is time once again for No Sleep Teal. Travis Reier, joined by my co-host, Mr. Evan Reier. Of course, this show dedicated to discussion involving the AFC South Jacksonville Jaguars. Evan, it's been a couple weeks since we last convened here on the channel to talk Jags. We've had an NFL draft. We've had free agency. We've got a rookie camp coming up this weekend. A lot of excitement as we move into the summer months and look ahead to the start of training camp. Not all that far off on the horizon. And as we get things going, I wanted to ask you about the Jags' approach to the draft and maybe even free agency as you consider that as well. And um, what did those things say to you now in retrospect in terms of the Jags window as we expected it to be something that would be in play for multiple years? Do you think the Jags are in a window still after last season's events?
I think with the Travis Hunter trade, obviously, I think that right away that was kind of a shot across the bow of like, no, we think we can win right now. Their approach to it, kind of some of those pieces when you account for free agency, some of those additions. I think that they thought this team was, whatever that Gladstone and Coen has walked into is better than the 4-13 team we saw last season. And I think that's somewhat fair. I mean, when we go back and, look at, last year, it was brutal because the Jags lost close game after close game, threw away a bunch of possible wins. So I like the idea. I mean, it's exciting, to think that this new front office, this new coaching staff thinks, oh, we can go win right now. Like we're contending for the AFC South right now. Because I just don't see how you use the resources that they used out the gate as a new front office and, not kind of say, yeah, we think we can win.
I think it goes back to the quarterback every time, too. And you're not paying this guy a former number one overall pick, what you're paying him because you're in rebuild mode. You
Right.
obviously a year ago at this time, what were we talking about? 10 wins maybe in 2024, make the
Yeah.
playoffs, maybe get back on top in the AFC South. That was pretty much a unanimous sentiment
Yeah.
with the Jacksonville Jaguars heading into last season. Obviously, it did not go that way. I think the previous regime obviously thought they were very much in the early stages of a promising window with Trevor Lawrence with this football team. And I agree. I don't think you give up a first in 2026 to go get Travis Hunter right now if you think you don't have a great shot at getting back to the postseason, of getting back on top in your division. And so a lot of excitement with Travis Hunter, as there should be. I think it speaks to, it was interesting going in the draft because I wasn't sure how the Jags were exactly evaluating him. Was he
Right.
corner first with some wide receiver? Was he wide receiver first? We learned after the draft they're going to first and foremost look at him on the offensive side of the ball. So from that perspective, it aligned with the narrative of helping Trevor Lawrence and helping this offense, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they were pretty quick, to say that too. I mean, sometimes, I mean, it's kind of an unprecedented situation, in terms of drafting a guy that can play both sides of the ball. I mean, I think that, the last dude to do that, last couple dudes to do that in the NFL, I mean, there's probably only been like two or three I can think of over the past 20 years. And none of them were necessarily guys that, had this amount of potential and talent. But saying that, this is Trevor's weapon first, we're focused on giving Trevor another guy that can potentially, catch the ball, make a play, and score. So, I mean, I think you're totally right. It does revolve around Trevor Lawrence, and I think part of maybe that approach too is like, for Gladstone and Coen is they probably have some security in their situation with Shad. Probably had the discussion of like, all right, we're going to put it on Trevor, and if it doesn't work out this year, then that's not on us. We're not the ones that paid him. We're not the ones that whatever. And then you have that conversation after. But I think they're just gonna, exhaust the fuel, to make sure that Trevor's the guy. And if he still isn't that guy at the end of this season, then you have to have a whole different conversation about, okay, well now we've got a roster that we think is pretty solid, or some young guys that we think are still going to grow into good players, but we have to figure out quarterback, which God forbid we hit that. I would love for Trevor to just finally actualize his potential and be the guy that, I think a lot of us Jags fans think he can be. So
Absolutely. And we're going to get back to maybe a little bit more of that topic coming up here in just a little bit in the next segment. But wanted to also just get your thoughts on the draft class in general, some areas, maybe some guys that you liked, some moves that Gladstone and Tony Boselli and the Brain Trust made in addition to what we saw with moving up to 2 to snag Travis Hunter.
yeah, I mean, overall, I like the class a lot. I think this class kind of represents what I thought we were going to get with Gladstone's approach, which is he is a talent first guy. I think there was still probably a couple of different areas on the roster that they did not kind of prioritize earlier in the draft. But overall, they still hit some key spots. I mean, obviously with Travis Hunter, you're helping out your wide receiver group, which we didn't necessarily think needed more. It kind of felt like they were like, don't get it twisted. It wasn't like a elite group or anything like that, coming into the draft. But
They kind of got their Chris Godwin, though, maybe
yeah,
for their Mike Evans,
right.
using the analogy of Liam Coen maybe in Tampa Bay. They may have gotten more
Yeah.
than Chris Godwin when it's all
Yeah.
said and done with Travis Hunter, right?
I mean, it's really enticing to think about, BTJ streaking down one side and then Travis Hunter, kind of coming underneath, catching the ball, making a dude miss. They ought to be able to spread out defenses in a major way with that. It's gonna be interesting to see how they do it. I really liked Caleb Branshaw as like the next up pick. I think that's a really shrewd move, and they still obviously need that help at corner. So now between Tyson Campbell, Jarian Jones, Jordan Lewis, Caleb Ransall, Travis Hunter, I mean, you ought to have 5 or so corners that you can feel pretty good about. Obviously, Travis Hunter is one where we're not even sure what that's going to look like. That's kind of
How's
the
that
question.
going to look on defense?
I was going to ask you, I mean, based on what we've seen so far, I mean, do you think when they talk about putting Travis Hunter in specific packages for the defense, do you think that's like a dime situation? Do you think that's like or are there going to be spots where it's like they're going to be in a nickel base kind of situation and Travis Hunter's still getting out there?
I mean, with what they have on defense right now, I'd be intrigued to put him out there in more than just situational
Yeah,
opportunities based on the people they have. Now they
right.
may get into this, off-season workouts, these things, and kind of see what they feel like they can handle him. Maybe as much as anything mentally. I mean,
Yeah,
the different schemes and the complex nature of defenses at this level. He's very smart.
yeah,
He's very quick learner. Can adapt. It sounds like so it may be a situation they give him as much as he can handle, not only physically because of the toll that can take, but can he withstand it and not just be swimming mentally? I mean,
yeah,
those are the things you can't have a guy out there that you're worried about busting coverages and
right.
things like that at this level. So, and his health. I mean, he's not the
Yeah,
biggest guy in the world. He's not 220 pounds. But I'll say this about Travis Hunter. I think we'll talk about this a little bit later too. I think it's tied largely to him as far as the Trevor Lawrence era in Jacksonville is concerned. And I think as much as anything for this upcoming season, his health is
yeah.
going to be one of the very top items on that checklist for the Jags in 2025. I wanted to circle back a little bit to some things you were hitting on just a minute ago, Ev. Wanted to bring this topic to your attention. More pressure to produce quickly with this new regime. Do you think it's Trevor? Based on your earlier comments, I would probably make that a betting favorite.
Yeah.
Or do you think it's still Liam Coen, Tony Boselli, James Gladstone? How do you think that looks for, again, the short term future here?
Well, I think there's definitely pressure on both sides. It's not like the Jags can just go 1-16 this year and just say, "Oh, well, Trevor sucks," so it wasn't us or whatever, right? But at the same time, yeah, I don't see how there's not more pressure on Trevor. It's kind of like how it's almost like the tables have flipped. In the previous regime, I feel like Trevor was kind of it was like he was kind of untouchable. I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore.
No.
I think now
Because a
with
lot of the Trevor supporters would always revert back to it's Doug and it's the
yeah, yeah,
press, and I think that goes out the window now because we've seen what Liam Cohen's done with Baker Mayfield, even Will Levis at
yeah.
Kentucky. I agree. I think that lifeline is pretty much out the window. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, really at this point, when it comes to weapons, Trevor really can't. There's no complaint that Trevor can possibly make. Now, where things could still be interesting is if the offensive line is just garbage and Trevor's just
I
getting
still
hit.
don't. I still don't know how
Yeah,
I feel about that
which
either. No,
we
no,
could
no.
have signed.
Travis Hunter. Travis
Yeah,
Hunter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's gonna be so fast getting open that we don't need the block. He can
We don't have
just
to buy. It's going to be
yeah.
like 1.1 seconds.
It's going to be totally fine, guys. No, um, that is where I mean, really, just based off of offensive line play from the past year or two, because even in the division winning season, it was still kind of um, that we could have signed two All Pros, and I think me and you would
Mhm.
still be nervous. Like
Yeah.
we'd still be like, I don't know, I don't know. But with Macari coming in, especially that's really exciting. Robert Hainsey, if they have shored up the interior of the offensive line the way they need to, and if Walker Little and Anton Harrison, maybe learn a thing or two with this new staff and kind of take that next step forward, then everything should be gravy. And if that's the case, if Trevor's getting a clean pocket, then he better be making throws because I don't see a situation where I really hope it's not a situation where the cons are like, well, we're still on Trevor's side, so I guess we'll clean house again after like a year or two. It's
No.
like, no, you can't do that. Like it just doesn't work. It's not how you run a franchise. So yeah, really at this stage, I think there's quite a bit of pressure on Trevor Lawrence. Now he doesn't necessarily have a obviously when you're getting paid that much, there's no question about like his starting week to week this season.
Right.
I think he could go through 4 picks a game, the first 4 games of the year, and he's not going to get benched. They're going to ride it till he's dead, like until it's just absolutely no chance.
Really though, isn't it maybe a 2-year thing? And see where they're at after 2026.
Yeah,
And if it's still not happening, that's where I don't think there's as much pressure on Liam Cohen and
yeah,
Gladstone. And I don't think there's any pressure on Tony Boselli. I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
Tony Boselli, if you want to talk about last person standing in that building 10
It'll be
years from
him.
now, it'll be Tony Boselli, obviously, because he's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. I think he just the only question I have with Tony Boselli is he doesn't have the same. Well, I'm new too, like
Yeah,
Liam Cohen and
right.
James Gladstone have. Tony's not new.
Yeah,
Tony's been in that building for 20, 25 years now, pretty much, whether physically or just having an understanding intricately of what's going on in that building. So Tony can't claim in most areas in a couple of years or two if things go south. Well, if there's things that they didn't address initially and there's still a problem like the offensive line or anything, two
yeah,
years from now, Tony can't plead. Well, I didn't get it.
yeah,
Tony knows better than Cohen and Gladstone exactly what the weaknesses of that franchise are. Or at least he should. I mean,
yeah. You
I would
better.
think that's a big reason why you brought him in there. I'm with you though. I think it's largely on Trevor. And I think the scenario I can see playing out is Trevor takes that next step with the help of a run game, which I think the offensive line additions they've made have more to do with that than even pass protection,
Yeah,
because if they can run it effectively, that will certainly help Trevor. Um, and 2 years from now, if it's going swimmingly with the new regime, great. Keep going with it. Maybe even look at another deal for Trevor down the line. If it isn't going well with Trevor in 2 years for whatever reason, I think Cohen and Gladstone will have the luxury of, well, he wasn't our guy. We
yeah,
inherited him. I know you guys agreed to pay him $50 million a year. That wasn't our deal. We didn't do that deal, and we've really tried to make it work with him. It's not working. We feel like we should be able to go get our guy now, and that's
yeah,
where I think there's actually a good bit of security,
yeah, for
and
sure.
in some ways for Gladstone and Liam Cohen, that there isn't maybe as much for Trevor.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, they ought to feel like they have 3 years, no matter what happens with Trevor.
Right.
Whether he balls or not, whether they're winning or losing, it's probably a 3 year stint for this kind of new crew. Which means, yeah, I think for Trevor that timeline is maybe like you said, 2 years. It's a year less. I think it's going to be interesting to see because really, when you also think about potential, let's say they have to abort from Trevor. I mean, there's some talented guys, like obviously in the college game. We're thinking so far down the line when I'm bringing this up,
I
but
know.
like at the same time, it's like it's kind of like if you get a quarterback draft like he had this year. I mean, why do
Mhm.
you move on from Trevor? Like,
Yeah.
or what are you going to go
Yeah.
find? So yeah, there's no rush. I think there's definitely pressure on Trevor more, but I also think that basically every single person we've talked about has 2 years to work with.
I don't think there's as much pressure on Trevor moving forward than there was even last year, though, because he was asked to do more
So much. Yeah.
than he's probably capable of. I've been
Yeah.
screaming for months now. Ryan Tannehill, this guy, Baker Mayfield him. If they
Yeah.
get Baker Mayfield type of production out of Trevor Lawrence, they're going to feel okay about that. I got to think.
Yeah, that would be huge. I mean, I would love for a Baker Mayfield. If Trevor Lawrence has a season like Baker had last year, I
Yeah.
think the Jags are probably in the playoffs. I mean, they're probably a 10-17.
And Trevor's more skilled and I think more talented, has
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
upside than Baker
The
Mayfield.
only
So
question, we've said it over and over since Coen got hired, but
yeah.
it's the edge factor. Does he want to fight for
And did you worry that you heard of Liam Cohen talking about footwork
yeah.
with Trevor going into
Like
what, year 5?
it's like how is his footwork not there? Also, what was he being taught by the 4 or 5 different
And what type of scar tissue does he have? Because
yeah,
his footwork could be tied to scar tissue.
yeah.
It could be more about the mental
There
part,
there
standing in
are a lot
there.
of questions there. It was a wild comment. I mean, it's what he's seeing, it's what he's experiencing, but I don't
But
think
I
any
think I
jet
think comments like that are why in 2 years they'll be able to come back around if they need to and say, look,
we
did
tried.
what we could do, and
Yeah,
you guys thought you were in a window. We were trying to save the window for you guys. But
right.
the reality is, even we couldn't do it.
Yeah, we
So
did our
we
absolute
need
best. We gave
to
it everything we had.
we need to
Yeah.
start our own window now.
Yeah. No, it is I don't know. It's a weird spot because I think there's a renewed sense of optimism in the fan base and the organization right now, but
Yeah,
simultaneously there are still so many questions that are
I
unanswered
know.
and won't be answered really
Yeah.
until regular season football is
And
being
the
played.
and the Jaguar
So
produced touchdown dances with Tony and James
yeah,
Gladstone. That's not going to change that. It's
no,
not. We
no,
signed the Ravens starting guard, and we spike a football in a meeting room.
yeah,
That,
it's
that
like
great, But
no
I do think Travis Hunter is reason for excitement. I don't think there's any
oh yeah,
doubt about that. And I still can very much see this team as soon as this coming season being back in the playoffs.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think, at the end of the day, you play in the AFC South. It's there. If you want it, you should be able to go get 4 or 5 wins a season right now in that division.
Right.
I mean, you ought to be able to beat, especially, I mean, the Titans with, I mean, I know Cam Ward's he's a really solid QB prospect, but we've already talked about not a great QB draft. In other years, Cam Ward wouldn't be, maybe
Yeah.
the second or third quarterback taken.
Right.
So, you look at the Titans, you ought to be able to beat them. The Texans faltered pretty hard last year. They showed that they were definitely not, impervious. And then obviously the Colts are kind of just continuing to hang around the middle ground. I think,
Hmm.
in that situation, also when you've got, the easier side of NFL scheduling because you finished where you finished in the division, there ought to be a lot of winnable games out there. And as we get closer, it'll be fun to kind of start, maybe in like July or August, start being like, okay, how many wins are we thinking? Like what are
Yeah.
we what are we
If
looking at?
if Trevor is who you're paying him to be, and Liam Cohen is who you think he is, as a offensive guy, a quarterback whisperer of sorts, and James Gladstone as a general manager can make the moves that you feel like he can make. Although I still think I thought earlier that Gladstone was pretty much a standalone guy, and I think he is standalone. But in terms of making those big calls, I've kind of swung more towards Boselli being more
Yeah,
of that guy, even though he's VP for ops. I think if there's a big decision related to the Jaguars in any area pretty much to be made, I think Tony's going to have probably the bigger voice of anyone in that triumvirate that we've talked about. But
right.
yeah, I mean, this is a team. If those guys, those people we're talking about are who the Jaguars hope they are and think they are, there is a lot of reason to think that they can be right back where they were a couple of years ago. And with that, I want to ask you this as we wind down here, Ev. Face of the Jaguars franchise right now. I thought about this. I thought it was interesting because I think a lot of people will always default to the quarterback.
Yeah.
But right now, after you traded up to go get the Heisman Trophy winner, you bring in a new head coach, you bring back or you implement. You didn't really bring back Tony Boselli; he's always been there, but you implement him as an official leader of your program of your franchise. Who's the face of the Jaguars franchise right now?
I think it's kind of a toss up. So, like you said, default to Trevor. I think Trevor is still the face of the franchise just based on when you look at the finances, when you look at the responsibility, all that different stuff. It's hard to say he's not, but I mean, you can make an argument right now that it's murky. I mean, really, being the face of the franchise is not being the same thing as the best player on the franchise. But you think about like BTJ right now. If you asked a random NFL fan anywhere in the United States, hey, who's the best player on the Jaguars? They would say BTJ.
And
That's
it,
that.
and it might be Travis Hunter without having played a down yet.
Yeah,
Next,
that's
it
well,
might
and
be 1, 2 those
yeah,
guys.
and on top of that, I think it was moving up for Travis Hunter was very. I think Gladstone by doing that, it was obviously a move that they felt strongly about. But I also think there's probably a little bit of, I'm going to make my boss happy because Shad and Tony they love a
They
splash.
love stars.
They love to,
Owners, not just them. Owners in general love
right.
stars.
They want to be no, they want to be
Relevant.
newsworthy. They want to be
It
relevant.
equates to relevance. Yeah.
And if you go look at the rookie jersey sales after the draft, who's number one? It's Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
So it's like he's beating out Cam Ward, he's beating out Shador, he's beating out all those different dudes. Um,
He
so
beat. Wait a minute. Travis beat out Shador's CFL jersey.
yeah.
Wow.
Hey, I mean that Shador jersey is going to be worth something in a few years.
That
Yeah,
Alouettes
yeah.
jersey. Yeah.
When when he's the first quarterback to be cut and signed by like 5 teams in 1 year,
Yeah.
it'll be worth something that Browns jersey. But no, but yeah. So I think you could make an argument for Travis Hunter right now. I mean, it's kind of funny because like it's just the modern era of what modern football and like social media and all that different stuff looks like. It can't really be a defensive player. Obviously,
Yeah.
there are like huge names on defense. Like you could say like TJ Watt is probably the face of the Steelers franchise, but he might be the only defensive player that's the face of the franchise on an NFL team. I think they wanted Josh Hines Allen to be that, but obviously last year he just did not produce at the rate he did the year before. Trayvon Walker maybe too, but really, yeah, I think it's somewhere between Travis, Hunter, Trevor, and
Call
BT.
it Trevor.
Trevor, Trevor. Yeah, no, Trevor to
Tra-
Travis. Yeah, I can't
Trevor
wait
and
for
it's coming.
the terrible calls on that in a few months. But yeah, I guess
Travis.
I think until further notice, it's Trevor. But I mean, Travis Hunter is kind of already there.
I'm going Travis Hunter because
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be huge in how this thing swings between what we talked about earlier. Is it the Lawrence era continuing on into 2027, the new stadium, all those things are going to come online in the next 3 or 4 years. I know he's a positional player, but I think he can be that impactful even at just the receiver position. And he has this persona. I
Yeah.
mean, he lights up
Charismatic.
rooms. He's fun. He's a great dude by all accounts. People want to be around him.
He,
I think he's that kind of guy. I mean, I've made the Tannehill comparison too much. You don't need Trevor to be the best
the
player on the team or the biggest star. Derrick Henry was the biggest star
on the Titans, yeah,
in Nashville, best player, and the Titans were the number one seed in the AFC playoffs not that long ago with
yeah.
Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go T Hunt. I
All
guess I
right,
just gave him
a new
another.
nickname. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I think Travis is going to be more receptive to that. Not that
yeah, I
that
think
Trevor
Travis is
pushes
ready.
it away, but
Yeah,
Trevor really isn't wired that way either. It doesn't
right.
seem like.
I don't think Trevor cares. If
Right.
he's the yeah, if he's
I
the
don't know
leader
if
of the
Travis
boys.
even cares. It's just easy. It's
Yeah, it
natural.
comes to him,
Yeah.
which is I mean, another way that the draft pick does complement, because if you don't have a quarterback that's going to bring that kind of energy into the locker room or into the huddle, then you better have somebody else doing it. And Travis Hunter can be that guy. That would be exceptional.
I think so.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a rookie mini camp? Any? I mean, it's
I think there's going to be there's some names I'm going to look out for. Is one I got to throw out. I did, I guess, it's a crapshoot, but I correctly called Jonah Monheim.
you
I
did.
think I think we've
I immediately texted you when
yeah.
Monahan
I was
was
I was I
drafted.
was stoked about that. It's always fun when you get one right, but I think that is one of the rookies coming in. That's a name that I'm really, really looking at, because, we've talked about, oh, well, Coen and Fortner, they got that relationship. It's going to be good vibes, whatever. Really, Fortner versus Monheim is going to be the backup center battle.
Yeah.
I think Hainsey is, the more they've talked about him, the more it seems like, yeah, we're definitely kind of thinking he's our starter. If Monheim comes out strong early, Fortner
Yeah.
better also be ready once he hits the training ground. Once
Well,
he,
the thing that gets overlooked when players and coaches are reunited on teams, especially
yeah,
when they go up from college to the pros, is that yeah, that coach knows everything good about you. You know what else he knows?
all the
Everything bad about you too, in
yeah,
terms of how that might translate to the National Football League. But yeah, I think it'll obviously be newsworthy simply because of Travis Hunter. But I'm kind of with you. We look back on the draft. I had the Jags trading down and taking an OL. That obviously did not happen. I did have the Jags taking two running backs. That did happen.
called that. Yeah,
Neither one of us had the Jags taking Genty at
yeah.
5. We weren't buying that. So interesting how things shake out, Ev, and been a lot of fun today hitting on some different topics.
Oh yeah. I also want to throw out Jack Kaiser. I want to see what that dude looks like around other
And
NFL
doing some of our mocks, I think we both kind of had him in
around.
that
Yeah.
pool, and especially where he went with special teams, a big part of that too, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and the thing is with the amount of experience that dude has, he ought to be able to he ought to look impressive when he shows up. Like, it shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
take him very long. I know he's a little not, he's not quite the most athletic guy that they've drafted, obviously, but I'll be curious to see that. That's the other name I'll
I
throw
mean,
out.
he's
But
not Rudy either.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's not. Yeah,
Another
we don't have
Notre
Sean
Dame
Astin.
defender from the
We don't have
past.
Sean Astin, putting on pads in Jacksonville, but.
Uh,
No, it has been fun, and like I said, there's a ton of reason for optimism, and I'm just going to kind of focus on that for the summer.
undefeated,
Hopefully,
baby.
we just got to stay healthy. That's the only thing that gets scary once guys start reporting is
Protect
because
Travis Hunter at all costs,
yeah, I mean it's
and a few others. Yeah,
yeah, I mean it's honestly any of the pickups this offseason, I want them as safe as possible, because yeah, it's been, I don't know, we've been burned on that before. I mean, I still vividly remember Dante Fowler
yeah, yeah.
like a month
Right
after
after
being
the
drafted.
draft. Yeah,
Yeah.
knee.
Um so
You don't
yeah,
want to hear.
keep
You
them
don't want to
safe.
hear any of that anywhere around the league for
No,
sure.
no, it's awful, but
You know what
yeah,
else is
so
fun? Party
what?
Girl, where I'm
Hell yeah.
positioned right now. Party Girl. I smell that. We got that garlic cheddar bread about to come out of the
Jeez.
oven right now. It's just killing me sitting here. To my right over there, we've got a cooler full of all kinds of great stuff. We've got a roasted tomato and garlic soup. We've got salads. We've got You know what we got, Ev? We got beef and broccoli over rice.
I saw the photo of that.
It's
That
an
looks really, really
entree.
good.
That is savory and wow, a little fresh ginger in there, Ev. Some soy sauce. Yeah, yeah, that's
Well,
all
we're
you
gonna have
need
to
for
get
dinner.
y'all a wok in there. We're
I
gonna
know.
have to get y'all a big wok
Yeah,
so y'all can
I'll
really
stir fry you in
in my
my
wok.
wok.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
No, I am jealous, but I'm excited to
You're on your way down. On your way
yeah, I'm
down to
gonna
Duval.
come down this weekend and definitely kind of ransack that cooler that you're talking about. So I hope y'all keep it stocked.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Party Girl is in the Avondale district, Duval. So look, if you're looking for something sweet, savory, you name it, gifts, they got it for you right here at Party Girl, 4205 St. John's Avenue. Also give them a call, 904-300-3025. Ev, we'll do it again soon, my man.
Sounds like a plan.
Safe travels to Duval. Look forward to that. So, for Evan Reier, Travis Reier, thanking you once again for joining us right here on Reier on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and do that right now if you wouldn't mind. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. That way, you're alerted to all of the content as it drops here on Roy. That's Reier on YouTube. You can also hit us with a thumbs up. That would help us out tremendously as well. Once again, for Ev, I'm Trav. Until next time, so long, everybody.